Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
Well, good morning, greetings and salutations, interwebs. I am Pops, and welcome to another great interview and time with Wakizashi Teahouse. Gray is here with me. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm good, thank you, Pops. I'm Genki. How are you? Are you feeling
All
good this
right.
early morning for you?
I am great. I'm up, man. So I got to be honest. I think I said it on. I don't know if it was which one I did. I'm usually up between 4 and 5 my time. I got things to do. I got places to go. I have a day job, so I do have some responsibilities and things to get to. But yeah, folks, if you want to hop in the chat, throw us some questions and different topics or whatever you want to kind of dive into comic book fandom in a different kind of avenue than some folks do. And that's just kind of to understand there really are different elements of the comic book sort of fans where you have like, you know, someone like Gray, who's like a diehard reader, like he's really into reading comic books. And then you have elements of collecting. So maybe people keep things that they only enjoy, or maybe people like really just love, you know, amassing whole runs of things. And then you also have a crowd of investors. And to be honest, there's just a lot of different facets that kind of come into play and actually can come into odds with one another. So great. Talk a little bit more in depth about like your lore, your legacy as a reader and collector and those kinds of things.
Okay, well, first of all, Pops, I want to say thank you for having me on and thanks for arranging this early time for you, you know, to fit in with the crazy Japanese time difference. It's 7 p.m. in the evening here on, Thursday, and I've just finished reading the latest issue of Gunslinger Spawn, which was so much fun. Todd McFarlane's writing that, Brett Booth is drawing it. It's a great comic. I really recommend it if you're just looking for fun and amazing art. But as for me, I've always been a reader, Pops. I got into reading my older brother's comics when I was a kid, and not so much a massive collector, but I used to always keep, you know, the things I was reading. I was collecting Batman, Legends of the Dark Knight, Detective Comics mainly, and also I went through the Vertigo phase when that was being born, you know, with titles like Sandman, Hellblazer, Doom Patrol, those kind of things. How about yourself? Are you a reader?
I'm a little bit of all three of these things, and more so now than ever. Like I started out reading. Obviously, my childhood background was as a kid was a reader. Anything my grandmother is definitely the enabler of my comic book fandom, where she was the one to take me to a thrift. There's this little firehouse thrift store. And before we get too much further along, we say good morning to Ironcaster. Talk about it early for me. Ironcaster is up early. Thank you, bro, for hopping up in here and talking with us. It was a little firehouse thrift shop, and they would have them for like 10 for $1. Now back then, of course, the cover price on comic books was like, you know, between a quarter, 35 cents, 45 cents. So 10 cents sounds crazy by today's standards, but back then it's not as absurd as it is. He's like 10 for $1 basically, and I could just dig through this bin. And I was mostly reading Marvel, and I kind of got addicted to Avengers and Spider-Man and stuff like that back then. And she would buy them for me from a grocery store, because they were in grocery stores and drug stores everywhere back then. And then it kind of like, you know, fizzled out. Life gets in the way. You're doing different things. And then in college, in 1989, the Batman movie came out, and that's where I ignited into revisiting it. And it was mostly reading. I started with mostly graphic novels before I got into actually collecting issues. And that's where the collecting aspect probably, and again, I have serious addiction issues when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I had every single crossover issue of Crisis on Infinite Earth. So if anybody knows that saga, I'm talking about tons and tons of comic books. This is not just the 12 core issues that's telling the story of Crisis. It went into every single title, DC title. So yeah, I have a little bit of an issue there. And, you know, and there were times where in the early 90s where I kind of worked and had like a little flea market comic shop, and just massive numbers of long boxes of comic books. It was insane. But here recently, in the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic, with the prices of things changing and jumping around, you can see behind me, I have some that's graded on the shelf. I have boxes of them across the room where I've had comic books graded to sell them. I've revisited different things I've had, try to, you know, recoup some space and also make a buck to help and, you know, buy other stuff, right? So if I can sell something that I can buy. I just got these. This is Graham Nolan's Indiegogo issues, right? The Alien Alamo stuff. So, sell a comic book. Next thing you know, I have a little bit of liquid money to go and reinvest into something that's new and different that I haven't read before. So,
how are those, Pops? How's the Graham Nolan's Indiegogo books? Are they good?
It's beautiful. I haven't read them yet. Obviously, it's Graham Nolan art, and as someone who loves that Batman era from that 80s and 90s stuff you and I've talked about before, it's definitely not going to be art. And that's the thing about Graham. I wish I even had more money to get more invested in his operation, even if it's just duplication, just because I want to support someone that I'm such a massive fan. I consider him and Chuck Dixon to be like these two goats that really are underrated in the grand scheme of things, because they almost single-handedly ran this DC universe during my heyday of me reading, like yourself, all of Legends of the Dark Knight, Detective, Batman. It's just like Shadows of the Bat came along. I had every single issue of those. It was just like, yeah. All right. So where are you at like today? Do you still, do you have like, how many 1,000? How many comic books do you think you have, man?
Well, as you know, I'm in Japan now. I used to be living in Manchester in the UK, so I could only bring over a limited number of my collection. Okay. I had to sell most of it. I gave quite a lot to my brother as well, so he's looking after those, and he's a huge comic book nerd as well, same as me. I always blame him, Pops, for kind of getting me started, giving me the addiction, like you were saying.
Always somebody.
But what I have here, mainly, I've got the full run of Sandman. I've got half the full run of Hellblazer, the John Constantine, the original one, and Grant Morrison's Batman run. I've got those because, thanks to my dad, he used to send it over. He'd buy like 3 or 4 issues and send them like 4 times a year. So I have the physical copies of that. I loved that run, by the way. I don't know if you're a fan of Grant Morrison, but I did like him when he did Batman.
Anything that Grant Morrison has done, pretty much, because even low bar Grant Morrison is usually head and shoulders ahead of most other. I mean, perfectly honest. Grant Morrison stuff on anything. Like his JLA run was freaking great. I loved his JLA run. And who else could write Animal Man and make it good? Like Grant Morrison's freaking great. I don't know what to say. I mean, Grant Morrison, And the famous, I don't know, do you know the stories like with him working with Ethan Van Sciver on Next X-Men? They're back and forth.
No, I haven't heard the EVS stories with Grant Morrison.
So obviously, Grant's overseas. Grant's kind of a very, we'll say this, he's kind of got like FU money in comic book standards, right? He just kind of does his own thing, right? And reality is, EVS is like not getting a lot of notes like from Grant Morrison, like what to draw. And so finally, like the EVS has described it as, it basically says, Wolverine is standing over a bunch of dead bodies or something like that. So eventually he got a hold of Grant through email or whatever and was like, Grant's like, I don't care. They're just a bunch of dead bastards. It doesn't matter what you draw. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant to my story. Like, it was such an interesting way of operating. And I guess Marvel really miscommunicated to EVS that Grant hated his work and whatever. There's a lot of miscommunication. They have somehow connected and worked it out where they were talking directly. And it was really a fascinating relationship. And that's how EVS actually, I think it is I don't know the number. I'm sorry. It's like between like 114 to 117 or so. He hid the word sex in the comic book like 100 times or something. And I guess Grant was in
stories.
Yes, cool. I guess Grant's in on the troll. So yeah, it was really fun stories. The lore of comic book creators is really quite fascinating to me. Mr. Grant Gregory hopping in here. How are you doing? Claude, good morning. Good morning wherever you are. Thanks for hanging with us, talking comic books. Welcome your comments and questions, anything like that, kind of discussing just because readers of comic books are the ones where they have their comics and they're kind of beat up, right? You pick them up, they got stress marks, they might have a fold or a bend.
Yeah.
The collector, right? They're all bagged. They're usually boarded. You're a lot more meticulous when you read them. I had a friend who would like wear gloves. I thought that was a little silly for most comic books. I can understand that depending on the price of a glove, because the oil from your skin, especially with some of the paper, can actually leave marks or whatever. And this is why there's a process. Again, we get to the third category of investing. Like if you're going to send in a comic book for grading or something like that, you would probably want to get it, depending on the value, get it cleaned and pressed. So they have people that will actually clean them and then kind of they have a compression process that doesn't ruin the book. And hopefully, if you have a good one, to flatten it out, and it makes a massive difference. I actually had a book that, man, I don't know if I took a picture or not. I did a video on one of them, I'm pretty sure, but it had fallen, so that the corner, like the bottom corner, like this, was dinged right here. Very common, right? So if it falls, it's going to get very common, right? And I showed him. It was a first appearance book of some kind. And I said, "Listen, I just your thoughts. What can we do anything with this?" He goes, "Oh, I'll take it out." I kid you not, Gray. He not only got it out, I sent it and got it graded, and it graded a 9.8, which is among the highest. That's almost like a perfect score for comic books, because a 9.9 and a 10 are like unicorns. They don't really exist. Because the problem is the cover has so much surface area that a 9 or a 10 usually has to have like a special cover or something like that to prevent from even like the slightest blemish, and sometimes it's just the printing. Like, it's not your fault if your comic's not perfect. It's because, you're printing thousands of these things on a machine that reality is one little color blip here or there, and next thing you have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be a pulp process, didn't it, Pops? The original comics were just pulp, printed on pulp paper, the quality, and as you say, your oil from your skin can damage them so easily. So if you're talking the really old comics, you've got to be careful. But I've got a confession. I do bag a lot of mine, but I don't board. I'm not a bagger and boarder, so there we go. That says a lot about me. I'm not that serious.
He's at that reader/collecting phase. He's a reader collecting to save the stuff he loves and to revisit it later on. There's no right or wrong answers. There's no judgment. I am not Pops the judge comic book guy or anything like that. I've had my feet in the different arenas, and I love and respect, because if you go to YouTube channels like Reggie Collects, he does he's a very professional articulator of sort of the investing side of things. Lots of videos. He's been around for a while. He's tens of thousands of subscribers by now. He's really, really good. Bree Comics is more like an actual active investor who just shows you, I went out and spent 40 grand on this guy's collection. Here's the stuff I have. You can buy some of the stuff from his actual site. He has like a site, an eBay store.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, like, I traded, I think he has one video where it's like I traded a Fantastic Four, or like an early issue, like a Fantastic Four #4 for this book. And it's kind of like a clickbaity thumbnail, because he's just moving money around. But you know what? If you had the money to do it, it's not an awful arena, because some of this stuff is so incredibly rare. It will hold value. It's just a law of numbers. Like, no one in their right mind is going to pass up. The first appearance of Gambit is one that's often talked about here recently, because everyone's anticipating that Gambit will be sort of resurrected in Marvel X-Men, just in some way, shape, or form, and reignite what is a pretty cool cover and first appearance book. But it's never going to become like a $500 book again. Like, it's like, if you have a 9.8 graded copy of this book and it's running, let's say, $1,200, it's only going to go so low before even people like me, are going to be like, listen, I don't really want it or need it, but for that price, I'm just going to buy an extra copy and I'll flip it at some point. So that's kind of where some of that stuff is. So, Ironcaster throws out a good question, transitioning to X-Men. Do we have a favorite X-Men character? Greg, are you into X-Men much? I don't think we've really talked to you. You talk much about X-Men.
No, I wasn't buying it. I wasn't reading it growing up. I only got into it via Grant Morrison, as we were talking before, when he did, is it New X-Men?
New X-Men, yep.
Yeah, so a favourite character? The one I always found most interesting was, I don't know, Wolverine's an obvious choice, but oh my God, I've just gone totally blank. Pops, do you ever get the stream brain where you just forget a name?
Yeah. Well,
Nightcrawler. Is it Nightcrawler? No,
yes,
not
he
Nightcrawler.
danced, right? He's blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kurt, something.
Kurt Connor. Yeah.
That's it.
Connor.
Thank you. God.
Yeah. No. I have an ex, and that was her favorite, was Nightcrawler. So anything we ever went to a comic shop or cards, she wanted Nightcrawler of everything. So there was always Nightcrawler stuff. So yeah, it's fine. No, I am actually. It's interesting because I was never into X-Men at all when I talked about my early phases of reading and collecting. I kind of came into X-Men only because, like I said, I had a booth, man. I had a store, and X-Men was massive. X-Men was good for business. Let's be perfectly honest. I could buy and flip just about anything X-Men. the cartoon, the 97 cartoon, was massive and reignited a ton of interest in X-Men stuff. And I got to be honest, people grew up on the 1991 Jim Lee, Chris Claremont X-Men reboot with all the different covers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So some people, that's their X-Men. They weren't around and can't afford like the original X-Men stuff, you know, first appearances and even Dark Phoenix Saga and things like that. If you don't have some of that stuff, it's very expensive to even get raw copies and beat up copies. They're hard to find, and they're also hard to afford. Wolverine is an obvious choice. The problem with Wolverine is he's just been so overdone. It's hard to pick him because like he's fantastic in the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont miniseries. Is a really, really great grounded human story. Like I love that one. And I loved him in like Dark Phoenix Saga. I think he was really part of the reason that story elevates itself. It's like when he goes berserker and stuff. His origin story in like Marvel Comics Presents is fantastic. Great covers, by the way. If you're just into cover art, I didn't include that as a fourth category, but some people only buy comic books just for display of comic book art and things like that. So that is kind of an interesting one that's out there.
Oh yeah.
I would be remiss not to include him in some way, shape, or form. I really more enjoyed a lot of the social dynamics of the X-Men. Like I love the concepts of the constant back and forth between the two principles of Professor X versus Magneto. This whole people try to make Malcolm X versus MLK analogies, and I think they by default can kind of be seen in there. But just the idea of, you know, the two philosophies of coexisting versus domination is obviously a very clear villain hero theme. It's in a lot of issues and a lot of storylines. I enjoyed those, that element. And I also enjoy some of the concepts of the relationships. Like there's a lot of like romantic relationships in X-Men that's not in other comic books, and also doesn't make a lot of sense in other comic books. In X-Men, it's very common, and it makes a lot of sense to have, you know, a Cyclops Jean relationship, you know, Rogue and Gambit, you know, she can't really touch anyone, she'll absorb their powers, they try to have relationships, Colossus and relationships. I mean, so the relationship stuff is actually interesting as well, because it's not something that consumes a story, but at least it's present. So I'm not sure that really answered Ironcaster's questions, but give you a general idea of where I'm coming from. So
Pops, can I ask you, what's the name of the Japanese character? Is it Sunspot? Sunspot, thank you. I never liked him because I always found him really arrogant, but I think he was written like that, you know, a very sort of stoic personality, and a weird costume design. And also, is it Banshee? Was it Banshee? No, was he the Irish one?
Irish, yeah, I think he's Irish.
It was just the design I didn't like, but just went to grab a book quickly. This is before X-Men. This is before Excalibur. Captain Britain. Now, this was written by Jamie Delano and Alan Moore back in the day. This was, I think Marvel UK were publishing this. Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Great art as well by Alan Davis.
Let me keep that big.
There we go. Don't know if you can see it very well.
No, I think you really got it too. Hold that back up if you could for me. The ones, or just pick a page. It doesn't matter. Just what I really like is a lot of modern comics won't have the diversity of the color palette. Notice how the color palettes are very pronounced primary colors layered in with all the cross hatching and all of that. And you get a lot of books now where you're just void of some of that. So even a book that's, no offense to Captain Britain, but he wasn't really one of the most popular titles. Look at how well the art and the attention to detail with that. Look at that center panel is beautiful. All this stuff is so believable. Great Very artist. Good job. Yeah.
Thanks, Pops.
You know, it's fun too, because I think there's been a lot of talk, and I would definitely be supportive. I don't know that I want him right now because the MCU is such a freaking mess, but it would be great to see Henry Cavill come in as Captain Britain. It'd make a lot of sense. It's so obvious. It's almost like a softball.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
But the MCU is in such a freaking mess. I'm not sure I want any part of that right now. So, so obviously, I mentioned, you know, so readers of comics are the ones who've got all these little stress marks and folds and whatever. They're not usually stored well. comic books that are bagged and boarded are usually someone who takes collecting a lot more serious, or maybe too serious in some cases. And then investing is where you get into like excruciating detail. And I've kind of, and I will admit, not every comic book needs to be scrutinized this way. But my dad loves to tell this story. When I visited him in Indiana one time, he took me, because what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to watch movies and I want to go to comic book stores and things like that. So even if I'm going to a different town, so at the day he's always joking. And it was like, we went into this shop and there's like evidently a comic book I wanted. I couldn't even tell you. He remembers this story way better than I do. Evidently I picked it up and I was doing this and I was looking at all these trying to look for imperfections, so it had to be worth money, because I would not have been doing that for just a run of the mill, Legends of the Dark Knight number 10. It had to have been something, a death in the family issue or something that would have been of significance.
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay. So you mentioned Sandman, because that's probably, of the stuff you mentioned, your early Sandman may be the most expensive stuff that you still own. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, well, I've got a confession to make. I've no idea of the value of the comics I still own. No idea, because I was never interested in it. But I thought that the speculators boom had kind of died out. I thought it had kind of quieted down. But from what you were saying, from what I've heard from friends who do the same thing, they get theirs graded, by CGC. There is money to be made in there if that's what you're interested in. But I've no idea. Having a first printing, the original issue, even if it's not in perfect condition, it's still very good condition, because I was always careful to keep my, my comics, in good condition, without boards, just in the bags. So yeah, what would you say? Like an issue one of Sandman?
I'm gonna have to send. I'm gonna have to get. Gray won't give me his address because he knows I'll send him something. So I'll send him some boards so he can get these Sandmans under control. The Sandman it was very uncommon back then. It was actually hard to find. Issues 1 through 8, because 8 is the first appearance of Death.
Yeah.
1 through 8 in good quality. Not a lot of stress marks or anything like that. Definitely not. And a stress mark is these little, when you read a comic book and you open it, there'll become lines. That's not a good one, because that's more like let me find one that's more flexible. This one's already beat up, so let's do this poor old Ninja Turtle one. This was one of my kids' comic books when they were boys, right?
Oh, cool.
Right, so we'll use this one as my example.
Number 2. Wow.
It's it's one of the tails. It's not it is black and white, but it's one of the tails. It's not an expensive one or anything like that. Let me see if I can see along this line here.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Right here, right there. See that white mark? That's from opening this and holding it open, and it gets and so because you can see the white in that. It's a color breaking stress mark. We can't really do much about that. We can make this smoother and clean that up so this is smoother and flatter, but we can't really make the color go back. You can't put the black back or whatever. And actually, because that edge is black, and it's the same on the back right here. It's all black. It's all
okay. Got it.
Those stress marks are basically one of the primary determination factors of how valuable something like this could or may not be. Project Storytime's in the house. Hey, man, thanks for hopping in. So, yeah, grading your comics, and I can be honest, almost anything in the first 8 issues of Sandman, and then there's just random scattered issues, especially because they're doing the show. It has drawn a lot of attention to the Sandman mythology of the first appearances and stuff. Because I'll be honest, once you get past the first 8, it was more like, this random issue or that random issue would be something people were interested in, but it wasn't really like a highly collected series for financial reasons. Now, because of the show, people have paid attention to like, oh, this is the first appearance of this character. This is the first appearance of that character. So that's where some of that kind of comes into play here. I do not want to say your name wrong. So.
Oh, it's Tehilim29. Good morning. How are you doing?
Tehilim?
That's
okay.
it. Sounds good.
All
Sorry,
right.
good evening where he is. I think he's over in Australia.
Oh, wow. All right. We are cross continents this morning. We're talking comic books of all things. So, Project Storytime, you cannot. That's blasphemy. You cannot use a Sharpie. That's blasphemy. Do not do that. So there, you say that. Let me get. I'll take a graded comic book off my shelf behind me, and I'll show you why.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Yeah, look at Pops. He's going for the shelf. He's going for the graded ones. Let's see how good these look. Very curious, Pops, like how much they cost to get graded.
Let me grab a Batman one to tantalize Gray as well.
Oh.
Okay, so if you were to send in a book, so listen, it depends on how many you're going to send in and what to recommend. You can go through other stores, will help send them in. I would actually send stuff in for people if I was sending in a big order, things like that. It's just, it gets expensive fast is the problem. You know, grading a book, because there's so many factors. Like they charge extra depending on the value. They charge extra depending on the age. They charge extra because you can pay to have it cleaned and pressed by them. You can pay extra to have them do it faster. So like any other service, right? What level of the dry cleaning do you want done to your clothes? You know what I mean? It's like pick a service, right? I usually average at about $20 a book. It usually costs about $20. So it can be as much, let's say $20 to $30, because with shipping it back and forth, and then with actual supplies that you're not factoring into it. So anyway, so for instance, Project Storytime, what you were doing is blasphemous, because if you were to do that, they will notice. And I know it was a joke, but people will take you seriously. I'll be perfectly honest. Like I am not shocked. There are stories about that. Well, you'll get back. This is what the label kind of looks like. Let me see if I can get this bigger. All right, let's get that bigger. See, notice it's a blue label. It has all of the. So it has all of the information right there. It says Batman 457. Jeez Louise, how do I get this to not do that? What's it reflecting off of right there? That's really strange. All right. It's blue label. Batman has all the information. If you modify it, so let's say there was a stress mark and you somehow just used your little Sharpie and you made a little dot and you fixed it. It would come back with a green label, a modified label. The green label is like death. Most collectors won't touch your comic book at all if it's got the green label, because it's been modified.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, the only it's like a restoration, like comic books that get restored fall into that category. So now that would only be. So the only reason I could think of a reason that an investor or a collector is really interested in that one is, one, it's just it's cheap enough that someone can get an expensive book. Like it's just, I want to collect it. It's, let's say, an early Marvel issue or a Golden Age comic, and like, I can't afford, $3,000, but for $100 I can buy this one that's graded low with a green label, or just because it is rare. Like you literally could have, let's say you saw an Amazing Fantasy 15, green label or not, it's going to be worth a ton of money. They just don't exist. Like it's just that big of an issue, right? So when you go into issues like that, they would seem like. The DC stuff's even more expensive because you're adding like 20 more years on its existence, going through the wars and the paper shortages and all that. So that DC stuff's even more rare. But let's just go with like Amazing Spider or even something more modern. Amazing Spider-Man 300, the first appearance of Venom by Todd McFarlane.
Oh yeah, used to have that.
Yeah, such as we've all had it, and it's almost all of us have gotten rid of it, and it's worth so much money now. So even a low grade or a green label would probably be sought out, just because it's like, well, I can't afford, you know what I mean? So it's kind of that kind of thing. But yeah, listen, I know you joked about Sharpie, and I'm not trying to start anything, man. I totally understand. Sure.
What about using black paint?
Crayon instead. Now he's just trolling me. No, I've seen comics with tape. I've seen tape residue on comic books.
Me too.
So it's a little weird on grading, investing, and collectors, like how they feel about like imperfections on comic books. So like stuff in the 70s, you get into like printing defects because they would ship things in the mail. You would have things that get off center. It's kind of a hit and miss. That's why people say, well, what's my thing worth or whatever. It's like one of those things where you have to take every single one on an individual basis, because it's too many variables, man. Too many variables. So, yeah. But yeah, so no, this was, that's a Grant Morrison right there.
Yeah, I recognized it straight away. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I think is it the first issue of his Batman run or the second? I'm not sure, but it looks like it.
I don't know if it's the first or second. I think he started at 655. This is 657. This is either the first full Damian.
Okay.
Oh, this is when Robin fights Damian. So it's probably the second or third Damian. So I think he starts at 655.
Nice one. Great memory.
Yeah. These are all huge for me. I was big into all this stuff here. So, and a lot of this stuff I went through with my wife. We kind of went through boxes and kind of pulled out. We actually drove like 2 hours to meet the grader. He's the pressing cleaning guy. I don't even know how this stuff works, so I had to have him explain it, and my wife went with me. So we're going to be in the car for 4 hours, go 2 hours there, 2 hours back, just to spend time together.
Wow.
And she was just blown away. She's like, I'm blown away that someone does this for a living. Like, literally, he is a genius. Like, he literally would buy cheap comic books and practice so he could figure out how to get wrinkles and defects out of comic books. Like, if I can figure out how to get it out of this one, then I can get it out of an expensive one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, brilliant people do this, kind of really into this. And it's a lot of money. There's folks, I'm telling you, there's not a way to explain. Well, this one came back as a 9.6. So I'm talking about if it was a 9.8, which I think if I look close enough, there's probably like one color. There might be, I think there's kind of one there. I'd have to get my glasses and probably a magnifying glass for sure. But I think it's right here. There's a little spot that color breaks. Probably a 9.8 is at least double the price of the value. So let's say this is worth $100 or $150 graded. It would be, $300 or something like that. It's not a little bit of a jump. It's like an exponential curve.
Okay.
With these pricing scales.
Pops one. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
One comic shop I didn't go to for long, but put price stickers on the comics. No, blasphemous. You can't get them off. Oh my God,
yeah.
It ruins them. Ruins
totally.
them. And to me, I've never liked that. Forget about just the concept of what we're talking about. Just the idea that you would ruin the person's art. Like, this is supposed to part of the comic is the art. And I know it's crazy, but I love the logos and designs and stuff on them as well. So not sure how to get the glue residue off a book. You would have to go to someone who's professional to do that if it's worth doing. I wouldn't really waste the time or the money to do it unless it's like an expensive book. But let's say you had a book. Let's say you had Gray Sandman #1 or Gray Sandman #8. And you had a couple blemishes, that'd be worth at least trying to find someone who can do it. And you can get things cleaned and pressed for between $5 and $20, depending on what level of work they have to do. Now, to get off glue residue, it might cost you, $10, $15, $20. It might take them a minute. You know what I mean? But it's not cleaning and pressing is not an expensive process. But if I was going to have either of those two graded, which would be the two that I would definitely consider off the top of my head. There are other issues in there. Like I think Sandman 4 is a pretty high sought after. There's a few others. But of the comics that he's mentioned, those are the ones that always kind of pique my interest of value when it comes to that kind of thing. So
I can't remember if it's issue 2 or issue 3 where John Constantine makes his appearance in Sandman. So that probably might be worth something. Great issue as well. Yeah,
that first 8, the print run was low. They were well thought after. It had like a lot. I mean, I read it very regularly. I was really into it. I don't enjoy it as much now as I did then, but unlike you, I was into the Vertigo stuff as basically an industry. It was almost like the mature reader stuff for me. So it was like I read all of it. Constantine was great. Swamp Thing was great. Morrison did stuff with Animal Man and Books of Magic with Neil Gaiman did stuff. It was just great stuff. It was fun.
Doom Patrol by Morrison and Shade the Changing Man by Peter Milligan. That was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, good days.
Yes, it was. It was good stuff. So, but yeah,
Pops, can I ask you one question about the grading thing? This is one thing I don't understand is that people that I watch on YouTube, a lot of people get modern issues like brand new ones just because they like say they love the cover, love the art. Maybe they get a rare variant cover, they get those graded, and I've always heard that it's it's not worth it unless it's like you say a very an expensive issue or a highly valued older issue. Is it worth doing it for a modern?
I think there's two strategies that I've learned about. One I don't really have any interest in. That's the first one would be let's say you're going to have, let's say they find out it's a first appearance issue.
Okay, yeah.
It's a brand new issue. Your Gunslinger Spawn is the first appearance of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So you're speculating at that point that it's going to be worth a lot of money at some point. I can go and buy 10, 15, 20 copies of that book, scrutinize them, of course, try to get as many 9.8s as I can out of it. And now I have a whole bunch of those copies that are basically perfect. I might want to sell a few right away, maybe just try to get some of my money back, and sit on a few as like an investment or a long-term plan. That's the strategy number one that I see with some of that kind of stuff. And I have to be honest, just getting them graded, you figure if you're spending $20 to $30 and I know it's already a 9.8 and I want it for the cover, or I want one to invest in myself as a consumer, that's not a horrible thing to pay. Like if I know I could, let's say, this is brand new, but now it's a 9.8, but I want a 9.8. Like I'm going to hold it. Let's say I can get it for, let's say, $60 or $70, I don't have to worry about all the grading. I don't have to worry about being wrong with my assessment. I don't have to front anything other than that. And then I own it. Okay. That's not a horrible part on the buyer side of it. The margin for the seller is very small, but it's a large. That's why you'll see some of them do that with, like, they'll send in like 20 copies. They won't send in like one. They send in because they want to get a whole bunch of them to make sure they get a whole bunch of 9.8s to play with. And you can pay extra for what's called screening. And what you can do with screening is you have to send in, I think, 25 or more. And you have to say anything less than this grade. So let's say a 9.6 and 9.8. And then they send them back to you for a small fee. They check it. They pre-screen them and say, these don't count. I'm only going to charge you $5. And then these will grade and you get all those back as grade. So that's kind of what they do on that thing. I am actually not going to disagree. I've done a couple books that are like the latter of what you were saying, and that is it's a modern book, but it's a variant cover or it's something very unique or rare, and you get that graded, even though it's modern. Now, people will say there's a lot of those, but there are variants that are like 1 in 200. That's the one most recently I had graded, and I already sold it. It only lasted a few days by the time I got it back because it did grade it at 9.8. It was like an X-Men red variant cover, 1 in 200. It was just really, really pretty. And I can see that because, even though it's a modern book, it's not real common. And I will say that to sports card investors and things that are in other industries like art and things like that, the numbers and the rarity, comic books are a lot more rare, graded and stuff, than the comic book people treat it. Because the comic book people treat it as though they can get theirs graded. Like they think there's a lot more out there. But I think as time goes on, that's less and less for the older stuff. Like to find Sandman stuff like yours, you would have no problem selling that book in whatever condition you have it in. It doesn't really matter if you had it just like it is, or if you had it, if it grades at a lower grade, someone's going to want it because it's just that uncommon. That's all there is to it. So, Project Storytime, thanks for hanging out with us, man. I appreciate you hopping in and making.
Yeah, thanks, man. Take it easy. Have a good day.
Yes, it's awesome. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting. So we got only like a little bit of time. I want to kind of circle back to your channel because you do these great reviews. You mentioned Gunslinger Spawn briefly. You've mentioned, because of where you are in Japan, it's hard to get physical copies, so you read a lot of stuff digitally. How do you pick and choose? Because you're a big proponent of turning my eyes onto Spawn. How many Spawn titles are you reading a month now? Is there 2 or 3 or 4? There's a whole lot, I think.
Yeah, there are currently 4, if you can believe that, 4 out now, because it's become so popular since Todd, launched the Spawn universe last summer. I was looking at some of the sales charts today, Pop, just getting ready for this stream, and Gunslinger Spawn was, I think it was the second best-selling issue. It was like 55,000, which I know is nothing these days, is it, compared to what it used to be? But for a modern book, it's very good, and for an indie book, they're still classed as indie, aren't they? Image,
yeah, they are.
50,000 is great. So I was reading 4. There's the main Spawn title. There's Gunslinger Spawn, which is great. Todd is writing that, and Brett Booth is is drawing it. He's a fantastic artist. The King Spawn is my favourite. That's kind of a reinvention or almost like a rebirth of Spawn by Sean Lewis, a good horror writer. And Javi Fernandez is the artist on that. Great art. The Scorched is the team book they've put together, and that's the newest one. I've given it 5 issues, maybe 6, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to drop it. It's just not doing anything for me. So apart from that one, I recommend all 3.
Do they have a reader service, like you subscribe to all the Image comic books or anything like that, get back issues 2 or anything like that? Because my kids got me Marvel Unlimited, so it basically is this online,
nice.
online digital library of what they have, and they don't have everything. They kind of pick and choose when they want to release things. I was just looking at, I was going to do a video on an issue that there's a lot of hoopla about, but it's not on the app yet, so I haven't read it for myself. The issue was, the only one on there is from March, so basically you figure 2, 3, 4 months behind the actual release dates.
That's right.
Does Image have a service like that or anything like that, or do you?
No, they don't, unfortunately. Yeah, because I'd be very interested in that. A subscribe service, like you say, like Marvel Unlimited, that'd be great. I buy them digital. I know I pay the same price as a floppy. I know, right? It's crazy. It's insane, but I've got no choice. Otherwise, it's pirating, and I don't want to do that. I want to support the creators. So I buy them. I get them early because of the time difference with Japan and America. So I can get a review done after I finish work. It takes about 3 or 4 hours to do one of these reviews and get it out just when you're waking up, or maybe
Gotcha.
like 7, 8 in the morning American time. So yeah, I do buy them, but they're only $2.99, Pops, and that's for the physical as well. They're really good quality. The paper's good quality. The printing's good. Nice covers. I recommend it, but I would go for Gunslinger because it's so much fun.
And what service do you use to get your digital copies from? What's the name of the company or app? Or
it was Comixology until Amazon bought it. Now it's basically Amazon Kindle, basically, isn't it?
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to have Marvel Unlimited. I really enjoyed it, but I just wasn't using it. There's so many things to read, aren't there? As you know, so many things to do, and doing YouTube as well. It takes a lot of time. So, yeah, I'm not subscribed to anything. I just buy the ones I'm interested in buying.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I don't know that I would keep Marvel Unlimited another year. It's almost like maybe an every other year thing. Like maybe I could do DC for a year and kind of just catch up on. I was hoping that I would be able.
Do they still do that, Pops? DC still have their?
I would assume they do. They'd be irresponsible
I know they
not
used to,
because it's just, you talk about a library that you would want to read, because who's I mean, obviously they've reprinted stuff in these encyclopedia omnibuses and things like that, but it would be fun to read Golden Age comics and revisit stuff that you just can't physically get. It's who can afford any of these kinds of things? So it would be fun to revisit it. But you're right, especially with the modern stuff. I'm not. The other thing I'm having a problem too is it's not as user friendly as I hoped it would be to integrate into a video. I guess not particularly user friendly to open it up and start showing you pages, and it would be easier to just download a bunch of images, put them in my own thing, and then do that as my video instead of trying to I was hopeful the app would be useful and that for that means, but it has not proven to be. So anything besides Spawn that's on your radar screen? I know you did a great review of, I think, Black Adam. You did another review. Let's see. I'm going to open this. I'm cheating. I'm opening this page, make sure. So what was your general thoughts? I don't want to spoil your video. People can go check it out over on your channel. There's links there for you guys. What do you think about Black Adam?
Oh, I thought it was great, mainly because it's Christopher Priest who's back at DC writing. I really like his style. I liked his Black Panther run. He's a very interesting and a very unique writer, So, yeah, good art as well. I don't know the character, Pops. I don't know about you. I only know the name. I know roughly who he is, but I've no idea. So I wanted to pick this up as an introduction to the character.
Yeah, ahead of the movie, I'm interested to see this version of Black Adam a little bit, or some from the New 52 on, even though I don't know. And I'm just not a big fan of him as an anti-villain. An anti-hero. He only works as a villain for me. But I'm willing to diversify some of my knowledge and try to learn a little bit more. And again, of the DC stuff, Shazam and that little avenue of magical stuff never worked for me. I loved him in Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come is a classic. Him in Kingdom Come was a huge like maybe I've been unfair to this character, but then I tried to read something around that time, was like, yeah, never mind, I wasn't wrong, I don't like this. So that was interesting that you gave it a positive review and liked it so much. I mean, I'm trying to put stuff kind of on the radar screen, but like you, it's just time is a factor. And I have a mountain of these things. I have Graham Nolan's things here. I need to do something with these. I have supported these guys for like the last year and a half, and now they're all arriving, and I haven't really done the sheet that's on the. I never really did a video.
Yeah, you should do one on that. It looks really great. I like the art style there with that.
Oh, and there's so much content. It's an omnibus, so there's so much in there. You can almost do issue by issue, or you could just So there's a lot that could be done there, and I've tried to get, try to chase after these guys who are super busy juggling these. Basically, they all have their own business now, so it's hard to get them on for interviews or spend time with them. But I will say this afternoon, which is 3:30 my time, which is the next day for you. I have Dan Lawless on, so I'll be able to spend time with Dan Lawless. He's one of the famous comic book creators, and back in our day. And it's funny because I found Dan, believe it or not, I'm not sure how he's going to take this, if it's a positive or a negative. I found Dan because of his trading card art. He was on like X-Men Ultra trading cards and Spider-Man Ultra trading cards and stuff back in the day, and that's how I figured out who he was. He started, I think, on one of the Doctor Strange books, and I wasn't really into Doctor Strange. I'm still not really into Doctor Strange comic books. They don't really do much for me.
I don't know. No, I don't know the name. I've got to confess. Sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out. It'll be the next day for me, but yeah.
So we kind of went down your avenue of what you do your general reviews. What are some of the other shows and stuff that you're kind of keeping your finger on, watching, maybe doing a review here and there on, that kind of thing? 'Cause I know we were talking off air about Kenobi a little bit, which finally ended. Did you do an episode 6? I didn't look to see if you did your episode 6. Yeah, you did. You already did a little comment there. Awesome. Good job.
I did like a live stream version, so it's not very well edited. It's just me showing a few photos and talking and complaining about it, basically, about the strange decisions. And I did try and focus on the positives part, because I know you know that about me by now. I do look for positives, but if it's something's bad, I'll call it out and I'll say why I think so. So yeah, I don't follow whole series. I just try and do an episode here, an episode there. I'm enjoying The Boys, by the way. That's for some
season
reason
3?
It's not season 3. It's a return to form. It's much better than the last season. Very funny, very sharp, very witty, and yeah, good performances by all the cast. It's not getting much coverage though. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know either. You're right. Definitely not as much as it had in the past. I don't personally have Amazon Prime anymore. I kind of bailed on Amazon Prime after some of their political decisions or whatever. So I've kind of bailed away from that part of things. So I'll revisit it at some point. I enjoyed season 1 for what it was. Didn't care for season 2 much at all. So I'm kind of like in between about it going forward. But yeah, no, that's great. It's good. Listen, I'm happy you find things. I'm all about, I think, to credit IRONCASTER, he's on my Tuesday show. He says, you find good things and then you make the most of it. I love that.
Yeah.
Such a great motto. And that's what he's all about. Finding good things. Like, what are you seeing that's good? So that's why I like including that as well. Like, what can we recommend?
How about you, Pops? What's caught your eye, like TV or film-wise, over the last few weeks or months?
Well, I just wrapped the Paramount show called The Offer, which follows the development of The Godfather. So it's a docudrama. It's not. It's just a drama reenactment of.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, it
sounds good, man. Sounds intriguing.
It was on Paramount. It was interesting. I really haven't done a video, and I almost should, but I'm not sure I can do a video and not call out a very kind of high-profile YouTuber who is completely wrong about their assessment. They did a video, and they were basically attacking this character as being manufactured and woke and all this other stuff. And I'm like, this was a real person. You obviously didn't do any legwork to realize this actually happened. Now, has it been dramatized and has it been elevated? Possibly, actually, probably. However, it's unfair to target that if it actually works in the story. Like, I found the show great. I really enjoyed it a lot. It really, really makes me enjoy The Godfather anymore, because very few movies. I always like to think of the scale of like how you rank things, and Rotten Tomatoes has now made things on a scale of 100. To me, there's only like a few things that should be 100. Godfather and Godfather 2 are definitely hundreds. They're perfect. Like, I don't know what you would do to make them better, They're just as good now as they were then. They're timeless. Every aspect of these films are freaking amazing. So the show really does highlight the miracle of making all that happen. It really is good. So is there a few creative liberties? Of course, but it was good. I enjoyed that. I've wrapped Kenobi. Kind of think we're going to agree on that.
You were watching Halo, weren't you, Pops? Halo with
Halo
one of your
freaking
YouTube
disaster.
buddies. I heard it was an absolute disaster.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah.
Another
it was
one.
Absolutely a freaking absolute disaster. I forgot I'm glad you brought that up. I'll have to share that with Loki because I'm going to a Loki show this morning, 9 my time. And we gave all the characters nicknames. Like it was more like Mystery Science Theater for us. So the main character is named Quan. It's this little girl. They shaved her head. It makes no sense why she looks like this. We call her Miss Mullet.
Oh,
anyway,
God.
we found I was tooling around because I don't know about you, but when I'm editing or whatever, I'm waiting for these downloads, the videos to go up and down to do their editing or whatever, folks. And I'll piddle around on my Photoshop or whatever. So I actually found her character poster and I put Miss Mullet's name in there. So I made a Miss Mullet character poster. I got to share that with Loki. This show was a freaking abomination. We rewatched. So on Tuesday nights, most Tuesdays. Last night was a Wednesday because I had a movie screening on Tuesday. We do Talk Hard is the name of my show with Loki and Ironcaster. And this week we did The Thing. Before that we did Wrath of Khan.
Awesome.
Before that we did Tremors. And the movies are classics. So good. And one thing that sets them apart compared to these shows like Halo or even Kenobi, but definitely Halo, is all the attention to detail. Like the set design, the art design, the costumes, the intricacies that goes into these things is just fascinating. It's just beautiful. It really, really is. And I have to be honest. So I'll give you a perfect analogy for any of you that are watching it at home. If we were doing a Halo version of this stream right now and we were going to show this image of Gray, behind him there would just be an empty desk. Maybe there would be a plant, but on to his left, where that stack is, there'd be like one thing there. It'd just be some random thing sitting there. There'd be nothing else. It'd just be blank. There would not be 1-2 pictures and maybe another item over there on the wall. It would only be like one thing. It'd just be bland, very generic, very disposable, wouldn't reflect any personality, wouldn't respect it compared to what we actually see in real life, which is it is part of his personality. There's things that can be communicated through what we see. Halo had none of that. It was generic, bland sci-fi. I hated this show, and I'm not a Halo fan. That's why I brought Loki in, because he's the Halo, game player and was into the EU of the Halo universe and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. I liked Offer. That was the high one. Actually, the screening I had 2 nights ago. So I had a screening on Tuesday night, so I had to move my show to Wednesday. I saw The Black Phone. It's a new film from Blumhouse. Ethan Hawke stars as basically
I've heard about it, yeah.
Child abducting kidnapper. It's set in 1978. It's a horror thriller. The little boy they cast does a brilliant job. It's super tight script. It moves really fast. It messes with your head. It never overplays jump scares. It never underplays, tries fake outs. It just twists and turns. It's relatively simple, but it's also just really executed so well. High recommend. I can't say it very often. High recommend. Top Gun Maverick was a high recommend for me. I enjoyed that. Top Gun Maverick was a high recommend. Those were at the top of the list of things. And like I said, just down the immersion of these, because it was the 40th anniversary of The Thing, the 40th anniversary of Khan. It's like, I don't know you, man. I can look at the top of my head and realize I'm getting really old. And that's starting to say these
Blade
movies
Runner
I
2, Pops.
grew up with.
Blade Runner, 40 years.
Yeah. Blade Runner came out the same day as The Thing.
82, 83. Oh, right. Yeah.
82. No, 82 is to me the greatest year in film. Like, you go down the list of these films, because Tron is in like a week or two. Tron came out in July of 82.
Ooh.
But they we were looking at I was looking at the box office for The Thing. Part of the reason it was a box office failure was so much stuff was out. It was a horrible time to release this movie. They should have moved it. So E.T. had just come out. So E.T. was blazing up the box office. Rocky 3 had just come out a week or two. Wrath of Khan had just come out. Then you still have older movies that are still doing okay. So you had things like Firefox, which is a Clint Eastwood action film. And you had Annie, the musical, that was still doing well. So Blade Runner comes out. So is it no surprise that Thing finished 7th in the box office? No, because it was just the timing of it wasn't, and the critics hated it. The critics hated the Thing. They hated Blade Runner as well.
Blade Runner was a flop as well, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah. I think that, because we did really dive deep into the Thing last night on the Talk Hard, so you go over to my channel and kind of get caught up on our thoughts and analysis. And I'm a massive fan of that era of practical effects. And John Carpenter with Halloween, and then The Fog, and then, you know, you get into these different things where he's hiring these incredible special effects people to work with. On the Thing, Rob Bottin is the special effects guru, and it's freaking great.
It's absolutely amazing, and practical effects are so good, and I miss them.
There's a great interview. You'd have to put in Rob Bottin in your search. Here, I'll put it in the chat so people know how to spell it, because it's spelled Rob Bottin, but it's Rob Bottin. If you search that, roughly 1982 or whatever, you'll find these different interviews he did. He has one where he talks about how they used actual, like, cream corn and stuff like that to try to get the effects, and then eggs. He goes, that's why it looks so real, because it is. Like, it's real stuff. Yeah, we dyed it, we made it look like blood, or we made it look like this, but it's actually something. And he was basically bashing CGI before CGI was a thing. Like, he didn't he didn't even quite understand exactly how brilliant his statement was in early 82. So so that's what I've been enjoying mostly, those kinds of things. I actually don't hate Miss Marvel. It's just not we've taken it as an insult, Gray, when they say this isn't for you. Miss Marvel's not for us. It's like for like little girls, like it's but not all little girls, like only some little girls who would kind of want to be a superhero. It's like there's so much, like, I will say the problem that I had the most with the last episode was that it's not being marketed as being pro-family, pro-marriage. Like, there's this great pro-marriage, pro-family messaging happening in the last episode, and it's not even part of the market. It gets lost in the shuffle. Like, it doesn't. It's not even going to get credit for when they do things right. But it also makes the show pretty boring. Like, I don't understand. It's not a superhero show. Like, there's not enough happening. So her power, she doesn't know what she's doing, so her powers are still pretty lame. It's accidentally
more like a family drama, isn't it? Like a high school family drama,
kind of,
with a little bit of superhero element to it.
Very little, and almost like even though it's supposed to be high school, it still feels very juvenile. Like, for them to be juniors and seniors, even though the guy looks like he's supposed to be a senior in high school, he looks like he's in his 20s. Like, it's really it's not. It doesn't quite work for me. And the actress is fine with what she has to work with. It just seems like she's more like a freshman in high school. Like, the aging, it just doesn't feel like a junior and a senior would. It just feels very junior. It feels like very juvenile to me, like Disney Channel, indispensable networking filler. It's just there. So, but I don't hate it as much. It's way better than, like, the way I felt about Loki and some of the other shows, because it's not creating, like, self-contradictions within their own freaking show. Like, I hated that. I hated Loki the most. Loki doesn't even make sense episode to episode. Like,
I couldn't even finish it, Pops. I couldn't finish it. It was just so bad.
That episode, we're on that purple planet. We spend the whole purple planet. We're trying to jump on a train. They still end up trapped on the purple planet. It was like, what the freak was the point of this episode? They didn't even get off the planet. Nothing happens. Like, they just
stretch it out.
They just rode around. It's funny you say that. Funny you say that, Gray, because you were talking about Halo earlier. The Miss Mullet Quan character, and the other one we called his name was Soren. We called him not Dave Chappelle because he looks just like Dave Chappelle. They are made up characters. One's Asian and one's black, as filler characters. So basically, all of the content is not Halo lore. It was all just manufactured for the show, and it all ends in episode 7 because none of it matters. None of it matters. They do all. It's like the adventures of Miss Mullet and not Dave Chappelle, and then it just all ends. And then we get back to the actual Halo story. It was like my head just hurt. I'm like, wait a minute. So you had a Halo story that was probably what, 3 episodes long, 4 episodes long, and then you just put all this garbage in there. You made them POCs on purpose, and it's so obvious, and yet people praise the show. Makes my head hurt. It makes my head hurt. So, what else is out there? I don't know.
I recommend Stranger Things, Pops. This
season 4.
Season 4.
Ooh, yeah,
Real return to the horror vibes of the 1980s classic horror movies, and good writing and good performances and great direction. You know, remember those?
Weren't you shocked by episode 1 when they? Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen Stranger Things. Don't want to listen. I have not had it. I haven't done a Stranger Things video, so let's do it. When they killed Chrissy in episode 1, freaking Exorcist style, throwing her on the roof of that trailer, and she starts contorting with her bones breaking, I was like, holy crap, they've gone total rated R again. I was so impressed. I was so impressed.
It looked good as well. Obviously, it can't be proper practical, but a lot of it looked practical. They're using a lot more practical effects in this season. That's what I heard.
And the boy Billy that looks like an Eddie Van Halen knockoff. He was freaking great in those first 2 episodes. Oh my gosh, he was so good.
Yeah, he was. He was one of the stars of the first couple of episodes, and it's great that they're doing the Satanic Panic, the D&D thing that that hit in the 80s when they were trying to get it banned as like brainwashing children, sending children to the devil. Crazy.
Let's try to. I'm sorry. I know I've asked you before, and I apologize for not being able to keep it all straight. How old are you again, Gray?
I'm 49.
Okay, so we're only 3 years different. So yeah, we definitely grew up in the 80s, the D&D stuff. Because the other one too, which I wish they would have done this, because it would have even added a little bit more. Motley Crue was satanic.
Oh God, yeah. I remember that.
I had a cassette tape. I don't know how I got it, and it got taken from me in school, and they called my mom.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Called my mom. My mom laughed. My mom laughed on the phone, and she says, "Is he getting good grades?" She's like, "Well, yeah." Because that was my big key to life as a kid. People were like, because I was a terrible human being. I was like Ferris Bueller meets like the pranksters from these 80 movies. I was just out of control with the stuff that I would do, because literally the rule of thumb was, is he getting good grades? Then leave him alone. It was so insane. My mom, I would never get in trouble for this kind of stuff. And she said, give it back to him. He'll bring it home and he'll never take it to school again. That was it. She's like, do they not want you to have this? And I said, yeah, they think it's satanic. Is it satanic? No. Okay, don't take it to school anymore. That was literally the extent of my Motley Crue cassette tape fiasco. Yes.
No way, man.
So when I almost did a video, but it's like enough. But you can verify, right? So I have I wish I had my notes in front of me because I didn't think about we were going to talk about Stranger Things. There are 4 or 5 things that don't exist in 1986 that they put in, though. So, for instance, there's a fist bump moment. We didn't fist bump in 1986 yet.
Yeah, there's always going to be things out there.
But that's fun, though, to reminisce about that. Because I know that people think I'm nitpicking. I don't mean it as nitpicking. It's fun to just reminisce, to realize that by today's standard, kids look at you weird. I'm like, no, we didn't fist bump yet. That's a newer thing. We would high five, or you would have like silly handshakes with your friends. Like you would have it was okay to have silly handshakes with your buds. It was like that was the thing. So there's little things like that. I was talking to somebody. Who was it? Oh, I was talking to a friend of mine I hadn't talked to in a long, long time. Super close friend back then. And I says, it was weird hearing them try to make a big deal about Kate Bush, because none of us were into Kate Bush. I don't know who was, but we were not into Kate Bush. She was okay. She was just another singer that was out there. But they've tried to play up this Kate Bush thing, like they have resurrected her career or made her.
She was like, really big in the UK, Pops.
Was she?
From.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, you should have seen her on the top of the Pops. I tell you, wow, she was a very, very attractive woman. Let's say, and what she was wearing.
No. So. Oh yeah. No, I know she was hot. I'm not going to deny. I'll say it.
Very interesting, distinctive voice and distinctive songs. A little bit out there.
All right, well, I stand corrected then. But I don't remember any of us listening to, because we were
not in the US
notes.
No,
not in the US. So that's why we were comparing notes. We were talking about like the metalheads and the alt heads and just all the different stuff. And it's like she just really wasn't on the radar screen for us. It wouldn't be surprising that her songs made charts, like, because those charts were like 100 songs. So how many songs are out at a freaking time? So everybody was on a chart. But yeah. So some of that was fun. I thought it was great to see Stranger Things represent that sort of like metalhead drug dealing thing with Billy. Like he wasn't even like weird. He was just like, this is who they were. And it's like, that's exactly how they were. They were just like with us. We didn't care. Nobody cared. You were friends with them or you weren't friends with them. This was a really great element in that movie I was telling you about, The Black Phone, because because it's set with like younger kids. So I think they're supposed to be freshmen. I can't remember if they're 8th grade or freshmen. They have like the bullying hierarchy. Like there's this bully, and then the bully gets bullied. Like it was really, really, really done well. A very good reflection of what it was like, and that it's set in 78 into 79. I was kind of bullied, but not too bad. I was never really like physically like beat up or broken ribs or anything like that. It wasn't like kicked on the ground. You get into a scuffle or something like that, but you didn't like, it's pretty rare that someone would just like pummel another human being. I couldn't agree more about Stranger Things. It was just, I'm just shocked that it was so good. And once you get to like episode 4, it just takes off again. I don't know, how'd you feel? I kind of wish they had gotten the band back together a little faster. Like it went on a little long for me between like episodes 4 and 7. Like, can we move this? Can we move some of this along, please? Like
that's been one of the criticisms. They were taking a bit too long. Yeah, things, with the episodes are too long, it was too stretched out. But I just got totally drawn in and got pulled in by the atmosphere, the whole look. It looked so, good, so authentic. And as I say, great writing, amazing use of music.
Amazing writing, and great use of, absolutely. So, I mean, think about the amount of characters that they're juggling, and we can't get shows like Halo to juggle like 4.
No, exactly.
They had 4 on a road trip, and it was more interesting than all of Halo was. Like, it really is a great show. I'm really shocked.
So many characters split up the different plot lines, and they kept them running at the same time, and everything was kind of like, it was all matching up. There weren't huge gaping plot holes like, Kenobi, for example.
Or I can't wait for it. Contradictions in previous episodes. Like it actually makes me want to, even though I don't really care for season 2 and 3 of Stranger Things, but I'd consider rewatching all of it again because of the way they ended the villain. I feel like, oh wait, this is like my only fear is I feel like they're not going to finish this because there is a season 5. Like I almost feel like, oh crap, can we just wrap it up? Because I feel like we're right on the precipice of having this incredible ending that would explain all of it. And I just worry that they're going to try to string it out or have some other. The only thing that can work for me is if the villain is actually not the villain. He's like the second in command. Like there's an emperor, basically.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think so. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. He's the villain, and that's why all this has happened. But there's something else that explains the Russian gateway and some of the other stuff that's out there that hasn't really been well explained yet. So. I couldn't agree more. You know what? It's funny you said. They also got me. Greg. They got Orville, and PJ got me. And I ended up watching Orville. I binged all of it. I've been caught up on Orville, and I'm blown away.
I can't believe you caught up, mate. I'm only halfway through season 1 because I missed it. I didn't have it on any service. I couldn't watch it.
It's
here in Japan.
So good. It's so good.
I want to catch up. I need more time.
It's so good. I was just consuming, and I'm really blown away at how deep social and politically these shows really are. They're like traditional Trek dealing with hardcore issues. And I'm not even sure you can make some of these. Because season 1 was in 2017. The one issue with the Mocklins, and you kind of the one where they're like it's a girl and they have to decide what to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Could we make that now? I don't even know if they could make that now. That would be totally off books to make that one now. If you're in the middle of season 1, you probably haven't gotten to it. Near the end of season 1, there's one that basically deals with almost like racism and education with one of the characters. Like they're way more smarter, but it's almost like it's implying that the person doesn't want to be. I don't know. It's this weird dynamic that exists, and there's so many of these elements in this show. I was so blown away.
Can I ask you then, Pops? Is it worth watching them all? I was trying to just watch maybe the most important or the highest rated episodes, but would you go for them all? Because I've been watching them all. I think I'm on episode 8 now, season 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I can advise you because someone who just watched them all. They kind of stack on top of each other for me. I didn't watch them. I don't know which ones would be sort of like filler ones.
Okay, yeah, no problem. It's a difficult.
I don't have enough context because I was moving through them so quickly. I don't have context. So, like, I didn't like this latest one. Like season 3, episode 3 was probably one of the worst episodes to date.
Oh, really? Is that the kind of alien style one?
It is.
A horror style one?
Is that what they were going for?
I don't know. I've only seen
It's
images.
it was like
weird.
JV version Stranger Things. It was. I really didn't like it. I thought it was just like it really missed the mark. It just. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it with you. I'll let you get to it, have your own fair assessment. I also didn't care for the very end of season 2 with like time travel type stuff. Like it kind of dove into. It's very rare that stuff can work, and I didn't care for it all. To me at that point, it just felt like filler. Like they were just filling stuff.
Okay.
But man, the social political stuff in Orville, I was blown away at how good it is. I'm definitely hooked on that. There's a new episode today, so I gotta watch that at some point today. So that's been good. And that's so it'll be a lot of good stuff to try to juggle and balance in the grand scheme of things. So what is your streaming plus video schedule for the next week or so, Gray? What's going on? Anything else?
I've got no plans at the moment for the weekend. As I say, I'm working on a Gunslinger Spawn comic book review, and then I try and do 2 streams over the weekend depending on the time I've got. So yeah, no major plans, nothing big to cover. Maybe The Boys, I'll be covering that on Saturday or maybe Sunday night my time. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm pretty well booked to the next rest of today and into next week for a couple of days, and then I'm off for about a week and a half for my birthday. So
great, you're having some time off. Yeah, I thought you were like booked up for 2 months.
No,
you got things every day.
It is a little crazy because I only have limited days that I can stream. So yeah, I have a very rigid calendar schedule with like this is the day for this day and that day, and it does prevent me from getting certain folks. I'm trying to do a news panel show, kind of like covering different stories and whatever. But I can only do it certain days, so it's very limited with who I can get because they either have a stream or it doesn't fit the time zone. They're still at work. You're just going to have to go with what you. And I try to advise people on that. And you have the same issue because you're in Japan, so you have this major, time difference between a lot of folks that are in like even the UK or in the US. So it's very limited with what you can do. How do you sort of balance some of that out? I mean, how did you work through that? Because that can be the kind of thing where it can feel very isolating, or it can feel very, I don't know, like you're distant from all the other creators because you can't participate as often or as much as you might want to.
Absolutely. It's usually like it's during the week. It's weekdays when you guys are all streaming in the evening, your time. It's middle of the day for me. It's either around lunchtime, so I'm at work. So what I do is I try and pop in briefly when I'm at work, when I've got a free 5 minutes, and just drop a comment in the chat, show some support. But yeah, a little bit fear of missing, like feel like I'm missing out. So I make up for it on the weekends where I'll try and center my stream to American time or say UK time, European time. Do that kind of thing, because no one in Japan's going to watch me, Pops, because I'm speaking in English. There you go. The language is a big barrier. So
it's funny because I try not to. I don't want to watch any of the, especially the big name creators, if they're going to have opinions on anything that I'm actually going to try to review. So I've tried to avoid them. But Az or Mahler had recently said something like they were living on like American time. Like Mahler says, "Yeah, I woke up at like 5 p.m. one day." He was like, because they do so much content that is more tied to our time zones that their whole world is completely shifted. And I'm like, oh man, I hadn't thought about that. That's literally like the choice you have to make. You can just do your thing, and this is where the limitations are, or you can adapt to this is the audience and this is the life I live. It's almost like saying I'm going to take a 3rd shift job, or I'm going to do this so that I can. Fascinating. I want to encourage you too, because you really do make your presence known. You've been in my chat time and time again, and I know basically when you do it, I'm like, he can't be free. he's got to be at work, or folks. Let's be honest, right? We go to the bathroom and we're like, hey man, I'm here for you, bro. Thank you, bye. I gotta get back to work. I gotta get back to work. I wash my hands, throw it out there real quick. It's funny to see when you do that. I don't know how to feel, Gray. It's weird whenever it happens to you, because then the chat lights up with all these people saying hey to you. You're like, it all goes orange with your name flying by.
I know. Hey. If you're on your phone, you can't tag people. Just like, I see you. Hey.
I gotta go back to work. Hail to all. I usually just keep putting hail to all because I can't. I got it. I'm sorry. I'm back on earbuds. I can't do it. So yeah, no, that's good. Listen, I'm glad you're such an encouragement to me, because I can see that challenge as something that you're working through, like myself. Like I feel like I can connect to someone who's also trying to juggle the time constraints as a creator and trying to just be genuine, be honest, do things that you want to do, have controlled world, and just let it grow naturally and ride this wave as far as we can take it, right? So
Yeah, that sounds like awesome advice for anyone out there. Definitely. The main thing is, Pops, isn't it? It's just getting that first video out. It doesn't matter how bad or how good it is, the quality, just get it out there, get it on a channel, set your channel up, take a leap, take a jump, and you might enjoy it.
yeah, one video. I think Gary said this at their meetup thing or whatever. Somebody asked him about it. I said, first thing is realistic expectations, realistic goals. Like, what can you actually do? And then, shoot for one a month. Then hopefully one a month can become two a month. You can learn how all this uploading, downloading works. You can start to learn some of the dynamics of how YouTube works, like how you title videos. There are things called tags. There are categories. There's certain days of the week and times of the day where you should or shouldn't post videos, where the most people are on it. And just being honest with yourself and what you can do. There's no rules. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. Is it tough? How do you? Boy, we've really taken this into therapy session. Long gone is the comic book talk. How do you manage realistic expectations? Like, so for me, it's like, because I know I can only do, these 3 days a week. Therefore, because if I was live streaming every single day, I'd already have a carved out time slot. This is my show. This is what I do. I would be burning up because my hours watched and stuff like that's catching up so rapidly. That's just what it is when you have time to do the work. How do you manage your expectations? Go, this is my limitation. So I know I'm on a slower burn, a slower process than, let's say, this co-creator that I like, that I can see zooming past me, so to speak. Is it rough to see? Is it hard? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I've seen that from quite a few close, close friends, YouTube buddies who we've started around the same time, and people, it feels like, Pops, did you have this kind of feeling? It feels like, it's not everybody, but it feels like everyone's leaving me behind. I'm just like, okay, there you go. See you later. I'm slowly advancing at my little pace.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it most of the time.
I don't have fear of missing out with those people. I fear they're getting so big they won't want anything to do with me. Like, for instance, like Zax and Flaccid have tapped into these markets with some of their reviews and the Indian films. I mean, they've really skyrocketed, right? They're both monetized. And then I've reached out to them both about trying to come on my show, and it never happened. Our times don't line up and things like that. Now they're so big. I'm like, so the fear I have is more of, well, will they want to talk to me now? It's not. Why is it not happening to me? Because I know where I'm really at. I know where my real self limitation is. It's more of when they get so big, will they ever have anything to do with me? Like, you know what I mean? I don't have as much of a problem kicking down the barriers and reaching out to people. Like, I'll text and message I was reaching out to Ron Underwood, the director of Tremors, to get him to come on and talk about Tremors and City Slickers with us. So I'm calling. I messaged. They haven't answered. They're not going to answer. Right? It was like 1,000 subscribers. I'm a nobody, but it's worth a shot. What if they want to talk about?
You got to try. You got to try it. If you don't speculate, you can't accumulate.
I got a radio interview with some folks, because they wanted to come on to talk. Oh, say the story. So one of them was Ed Asner. Remember Ed Asner, the famous guy? Lou Grant. He's the voice of the old guy on Up for some of you at home. He's the Santa Claus that was in Elf, right? Lou Grant, famous actor. About 1 million things on his resume. He came on my little radio show and did a little 15, 20-minute segment for us because he wanted to talk about Autism Speaks. Because it was a charity thing that he was doing. He could talk about some play that he was wanting to do. He was in some knockoff movie. I don't even know if it ever made the theater. It didn't make the radar screen. But he wanted to talk about Autism Speaks. So as long as I gave him 5 minutes to talk about Autism Speaks, he was going to come on. So I always shoot for that. I think, well, you never know.
Yeah.
But I kind of see Zax and Phoenix, and I don't think, why not me? I think, oh, man, good for them. Hope they don't forget about me. I would like to have them on. I never did get the chance to have them on. I kind of still want to talk, because I love it. I love what they're doing. They got to those movies before I did. I know about RRR. I just never got to a review. I never, things like that. I'm like, so, but yeah, I think we relate on that same level. You watch it and you're kind of like, I want to be part of the club too, guys. Don't forget about me.
Of course, I'm really happy for them, and I'm delighted. It's
Yeah.
like, yes, people I know who I get on with, and they're very, very good. They're very funny, both of them. They deserve the success. It just is what it is. You can't help being human, can you, Pops? And you do kind of feel a little bit like,
No.
oh, okay, so everyone else seems to be making it. What am I doing wrong? Instead of just saying, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. Just maybe my appeal isn't as big, as wide as theirs. So it'll come eventually. Just it was going to take a longer route for me.
Yeah, they hit a niche, right? They hit those movies that know. So again, there's competition, right? So it's also like they hit movies that are huge in certain markets. So it just tapped into something. It just elevated them very, very quickly. And I'm happy for them. I have and I don't want to talk. I want to call them out as two people, because obviously there's dozens of these people that are the same way. And they respond to me privately. It's not as though they're ignoring me or anything like that. But you can't help but be human to feel like, I don't know. You feel like you're like the junior kid in the group now. You feel like you're like I feel like I'm the kid that's like, oh yeah, whatever, Pops, yeah, whatever. So, I think it's part of it. I think creators need to know that, like, that we're human too. It's okay to reach out to us. It's we just want to keep doing the things that are genuine to us. It's hard to balance, that's for sure. And I think we're novices at some of this stuff. Like, people pretend that we have it figured out. Like, if you have a lot of subscribers, or you have more, like someone. Like, if I were talking to someone with 200 subscribers, they're going to think I have something figured out that they don't, just because I'm further along in the process. But they may not know I've been doing YouTube for like over 10 years, just on other channels and different projects. Pops is like a new thing. Pops is not, I've owned it, but I didn't do anything with it really until the last 4 months. It's only been since actually March where I really were like, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to do this every week. Before, it wasn't even on the radar screen. It was Pops was just, oh yeah, I had the Pops. I created Pops. Pops started because that was my nickname for my grandkids.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
Pops on Pop Culture was the joke where I'll just talk about pop culture, and I used it as a branding tool on a couple radio shows. I'd come on, I'd do their little weekly, what's new in theaters this week, Brandon. That's my real name. And I would just talk about movies, or Walking Dead at the time was a big deal for a while. That got me a gig on a show for like, I don't know, 2 full seasons. So it was like 2 full seasons of Walking Dead had me on this guy's radio show for a segment.
Cool.
But I didn't really do my own YouTube thing. I had no video, right? It was only audio radio shows or whatever.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, man, the very first channel we did where we tried to transfer stuff over from a radio show that we owned, we basically bought time on a radio show and had stuff. They didn't copyright any of it for years. It got no traffic. It would get like 14 views, 5 people we knew, right? Or us. It was just playing, when you're editing, you're playing it. It's playing in the background because you're editing or whatever. Yeah, that's my view. And then like 2 years into it, when we're actually like, oh, maybe we should focus on this, they started copyright flagging them all based on the music that was the bumper music from the radio show. Because, quote, yeah, you owned it for the radio show, but you don't own it on our platform. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Now, there was no mute and there was no cut button back then. So you had to either delete the video or remove the video, edit it, and try to put it back. Good luck trying to figure out how to survive. It was so demoralizing and time wasting. This is the kind of stuff that you have to overcome. And I think it's easier now because at least there are tools and there are people that are willing to help you. And once I understood Twitter as a marketing tool, like that was this perfect way we could all have each other's email address without having email addresses. It was like, okay, I can ask for help now. I can reach out and build relationships and try to figure out how to navigate this mess. So, well, we ended this show with a freaking YouTube therapy session. Great to know he signed up for that.
It's great. I think it's good. People want to hear this, especially anyone new who finds your channel. I was looking for this kind of advice when I was starting out. I just, we're telling people what we've learned through the hard way. So it's great. It's good to cover different topics. It's like my streams. They start off on one thing and then end up on a completely different subject at the end.
Well, this is how it'd be if we were hanging out. Like we were having a meal together or at each other's houses, just hanging out or whatever. We just start chatting. We'd be down these rabbit holes of what we'd actually talk about. And I enjoy that transparency. And I couldn't agree more, man. Like I think we basically agreed, folks, like, you're going to naturally see the competition with people around you, but you have to be realistic with yourself. It doesn't mean you stink. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means they did something different and it succeeded or it failed. Also, don't limit yourself in thinking that you're never worthy or you're overworthy, right? If you're succeeding, you got to continue to reach down and up. And if you're down low, you got to continue to keep reaching up and keep reaching out and growing and learning. And realistic expectations and goals, that's for sure the hardest one. So the links are there for Gray's channel. Make sure you go check out Wakizashi'S Teahouse. Great comic book, TV show, movie review stuff. Live streams on the weekends. I try to pop in from time to time, but my weekend streaming is from my phone, and I'm having terrible problems connecting from my phone. I don't know what's happening.
I've never tried it, Pops. On that topic, just briefly, I tried my first smartphone phone live stream at the weekend. Never tried it before, and of course the quality's not good. The microphone's terrible on the phone. That can't be helped. But yeah, it was good to do it, and it was easier than I thought. But did you know that your live streams from a phone, they're what's called limited? If you're under 1,000 subscribers, YouTube won't kind of recommend it. They won't put it out there. But I still got quite a few views. I ended up unlisting those videos, so people can't actually see them now because they weren't very good. But yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I would encourage you not to unlist them. I encourage you to put them back and just put a comment in the top and say, listen, I didn't consider this very good, and I enlisted it for a while. It's a learning experience for me. Because I think that over the long haul, you'll look back on that video. It's like a baseline of where you started. I have regrets that I deleted some of those videos and stuff we were talking about before. So I'm not sure I have them. I've tried to resurrect a couple audio clips from the show radio work I did, and the quality is terrible because the quality is like a copy of a copy kind of thing. I don't have the time to deal with all the audio filters and try to make it sound better. It's either content or it's not. I'm putting it up for posterity's sakes. But no, I haven't done. I don't think I could stream from my phone where I'm at. It would be very hard to keep a signal. There's only one carrier. You have to have AT&T as a carrier to be able to even have service at my farm. That's how remote we are.
Okay, sure. There's a location thing, isn't there? Right.
Yeah. But when I've tried to hop in shows, it's like sometimes there's an echo. Sometimes I can't hear them. Like it sounds like a phone. Someone's talking, but the phone's laying on your desk. Like you can hear the voice, but you can't really make it out. Like it won't. I don't know what. But other times I've used it. It works fine. I don't know. I'm doing something wrong. I have to play with it a little more. But yeah, it is what it is. I enjoy this so much more. I wish I could just do more of this every day, but not quite yet. Not quite yet. Maybe someday. We'll see. Comic books, TV, movies, stuff we like, YouTube advice. You've got a little bit of everything today, folks. With Gray from Wakizashi Teahouse. Consider checking out his channel, subscribing. I'm watching these videos. I'm enjoying his content. Hopefully you do too. And if you do, sub and connect with him on Twitter and other avenues. It's been great checking with him, and I appreciate your time as well, guys. If anything you like, I love your comments. I love, getting to know you guys and that kind of thing. So with that, I'm going to say farewell and send you out with a little Bob Ross. Let's have some fun.
Bob Ross, all I do is chill.